Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a very cool knife that I didn't really do an unboxing on because I met one of my subscribers on a meetup, a knife meetup, where we got together and talked about knives and shared some of the different knives, and he loaned two knives to me to do a kind of a review impressions of. And so this is I'm gonna talk about my first initial experience with it, but you're not gonna experience it, so I'm sorry, because it was more at the time he goes, hey, check this out, and wow, it was really cool. So let's talk about this knife, okay? I will link the subscriber down below for their YouTube channel and or Instagram page. I do try to put that in there. Danny is a guy and he's just really fantastic. I appreciate him a lot. So great subscriber. Appreciate all the subscribers who allow me to experience some knives I would probably never get to experience otherwise. So thank you to my subscriber, channel members. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the name of this knife, this is the Trisect. This is made by Serge Knives. Serge Knives is the designer. Really, really cool knife. Danny described this knife to me. He says, this is a knife that you would not buy, but I think you would love. And he was absolutely 100% right. It's not a knife I would buy, but I do love it. It is just so unique. And I could see how, like other collectors who get into those big, overbuilt knives, how they get into them, because this is like that. This is like the free sample, the lure you in type of sample to get you to feel like that. I can understand that. So this Trisect is a beautiful knife. It's Serge Knives is a designer. The manufacturer, he finally was able to run this as a production run, so it's not a custom knife, and it's done by Bestech. Bestech is the manufacturer that does this. Really, really fantastic job on it. Obviously Trisect is the name. And so we'll talk a little bit about the handle and the liner material. So it's titanium, beautifully, looks like it's like a black stone wash. I don't know if you want to call it black or gray stone wash, but it sure does have some nice anodization, it looks like, color on there. And then this inlay, this is a titanium flamed, or I think he calls it flamed. Is it called flamed? No, yeah, flamed titanium inlays. So this is flamed, and I love the design. It's very different than your typical what you see on usually on the outside of the handle, because it's highly polished and flamed. So it's got a very unique aesthetic. I think that's really, really, really cool. All right, so that's the handles, and it does have a titanium milled clip as well, as you can see, and it goes in really well, in easily. It does have a little flexibility, so in and out of the pocket really nice, and I did confirm that. And it's a relatively deep carry, so it's going to want to push the handle this way, which is going to be more parallel like that, and it's going to kind of want to push your the knife in toward the back of your pocket. It's right hand tip only, by the way, so sorry lefties, it's only right hand tip up. You'll see just the Serge Knives logo right there. And it does have several standoffs, 3 standoffs. I think this standoff is meant to be a lanyard hole, even though it looks like a full standoff. So it's a beautiful aesthetic. If you're going to do a standoff for like a lanyard hole, I mean, I like this. I mean, it looks aesthetically uniform as far, it doesn't stand out. So I mean, I like the pins too, by the way, when they do the standoff pins for the or the pins for the lanyard hole, but usually it's kind of built into maybe a backspacer, or it's very subtle. It's, and it looks appropriate. But if you're going to have a very dominant standoff, this is the way to do it. All uniform, really beautiful. I like that. Just my personal aesthetic. So that's the material there. So let's talk about the blade, and we'll do a little flick here. You can see it's a beautiful meat cleaver. I don't know what you want to call this. I call it a meat cleaver. I'm sure there's a wonderful name for it. Let me see if they give it a name. I don't know I don't see a specific name for this design, but I call it meat cleaver design, obviously. Huge, huge sharpening choil, so you have all day long to sharpen. It is a flat grind, and technically, I guess that's sort of a swedge. I think it's more of an aesthetic design, because I guess if you're cutting like that, going down like that, I guess you could use it as a swedge, but there's no swedge up here really. This is flat all the way up here. But because it's such a long grind and such a big blade, it does come down to pretty thin. It's pretty sharp as well, so that's nice. Definitely got a nice pokey tip, but it's going to be a strong tip. It does thin out a bit, so you'll be able to cut through things. Is M390 blade steel. and Bestech usually does a pretty good job on their heat treats on there. And now that the blade is out, you'll see this beautiful cutaway, and it's like a dual layer cutaway. So this is part of this left scale over here, but then this part up here is the part of the lock bar, and that lock bar engages on the tang of the blade pretty well, and we're looking at probably about 30% engagement, if you can see that. So, but you do have like a little chamfering or cutout here that's very comfortable. It's easy to get to, and so when I drop that, it does drop down to sort of the base of the blade here inside of the sharpening choil. So I'm catching it. I'm not going to have the guillotine for such a heavy blade that could otherwise maybe cut my fingers. It's very comfortable to use. It's not, I'm not going to worry about that, you know, slicing my finger or my nail. So that's nice. By the way, this runs on washers, phosphor bronze washers. It's not cage ceramic ball bearings. So if those of you guys who want a heavy overbuilt knife that you can use in some really, you know, difficult situations where you may have metal steel around, this is definitely one of those knives you could do. Now it is a big boy, and it's kind of hard to reverse, to close left-handed, I'm noticing, and I really have to get a grip down there because my hands are, I have large hands, but they're medium length fingers, so I'm not quite as long to reach out there. I can still do it. If I do a little flick with it, I have to kind of help that one. On the left-hand side, very easy to do, very easy to do, both for the reverse flick and the thumb flick. So really dominant, strong deployment, engages with the blade stop pin right there, really nice. Locked up, no shake whatsoever, no blade rock, and no detent lash. It's in there really well, and let's listen to that detent. Really solid detent. And there's no pivot lash in here, so that's really nice. So it's very well engaged, very solid in there. But that blade steel, I like it. Beautiful jimping all the way up here. You can choke up really well and get the jimping and come here for a precision cut. Notice my large hands, plenty of room for extra large, double extra, even I think triple extra large hands. So this is a big boy's, big handle for big hands. So if you got big hands, you may very much like this knife if the aesthetic speaks to you. I will say it is not probably one I would go out of my way to collect in my collection because I like to use and carry everything I collect. But I do love it. I do. I would not probably buy it. I would, very likely I probably would not buy it, but I love it. I do love it. That's really cool. So, all right, how does it close? It's we already talked about cutaway. It's really nice, closes really well on phosphor bronze, has actually a drop action. And I suspect if you carry this after a while, or if you took them out and you polished the phosphor bronze, you could get that beautiful drop action like I get on my Spydercos and my Benchmades. I think that would be very, very possible, and that would just get that beautiful buttery smooth action without any blade rock. I think that's very realistic to do. Nice and centered. I think it might be off just a hair. It's in there solidly. It might be off just a slight hair. I don't know if that's a blade grind or is it. Let me take a look. Is it off just a hair? When I look at the blade itself, I say no, but when I look at the tip, I say maybe. But I don't know. I think it's pretty dead center. It's not my knife. I'm not going to center it, but if you know, it depends on how you center. Do you center by the tip of the blade? Do you center by the overall blade looking down? I think if you do this, it's perfectly fine. If you do that, you might be a little, you know, some people do that. And I know many times if I just do that, I'm like, yeah, it's good, you know. So, but to me, it seems like it's pretty centered. You know, if you're OCD and you center by certain other means, you have to keep that in mind. So for instance, like I have my McNees, those are manually ground and stuff, and they're still done in USA. And so sometimes parts of the blades aren't perfectly uniform when you hand grind it and you don't have a machine doing that. So I'm okay with some of that, and just realize and take the overall aesthetic and decide what is centered for me, you know, and if I'm okay with it, I'll leave it. And if I want to change it, I can. And that's very easy. I have several videos on how to center. It's super easy to fix if you think so. But to me, I think it's centered when I look at this. I'm good. If I look at the very tip, it might be, and it's so microscopic. Most people, unless they're OCD, a little bit like me, you know, you won't notice. But to me, I think overall for the blade here, perfect. So, all right, that is a little bit about it. It is definitely a frame lock. And you do have a steel over travel stop in there that works really well and allows you not to overcome. You can see it. Can we see that right there? You can see the steel over travel stop right there. So that's nice. Everything is a T8, and let's just confirm that real quick. I'm going to get my screws. Definitely recommend some good tools like the Weeha bits here. I think are good. So let's just double check that. Yep, T8s. By the way, just in case you're curious, T8. All right, and let's see. Is it even this one a T8? Yeah, even the over travel stop is a T8, and the pivot. T8, and it is a captive pivot. That's nice. Captive pivot, just one screw there, so that's great. All right, that always saves you having to have 2 screwdrivers. So really, really cool. I like that. So that's the hardware. I think it's all steel hardware on here. I think everything else is titanium. The blade M390, phosphor bronze washers, really, really nice. So that's a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put this away so we can continue with our review. But let's talk about we talked about the lock type. Let's talk a little bit about the weight. Let's measure the knife. Let's get our measurements in here. All right, so as you probably suspect, we'll look at it already. There's not a whole lot of weight relief. There's a little bit there, but not a lot. And even the insert, the inlay or the inlaid titanium is more titanium, so you're not really reducing the weight. So be ready for that. All right, so here we go. Yeah, 6.2 ounces. It's a big boy. It's not a light knife. So if you're thinking of carrying this in some very thin gym shorts, I might not recommend that because it might fall out or pull your shorts down and you might expose your derriere or something like that, and you may not want to do that. So let's go ahead and measure the length overall because as you can see, it's not a little knife. Overall, we're looking at a knife about 8.5 inches overall length. We're looking at the handle, even at the very top choke up, you've got about, I want to say 4.75 inches of handle grip if you even go over to the edge here, because if you're a really big hand, you can get the little pinky to use that as leverage. So I'm gonna, if you talk right here, you got 4.25 inches, but if you go all the way to the edge, you got about 4.75 inches. So that's plenty of room. And you could even theoretically choke up a little bit more to get a 5-inch handle. If you get hands are that big, you know, there you go. All right, so let's look at the blade length from the tip of the blade to the handle. You're looking at 3.5 inches. So depending on your state, know your local and state knife laws. Sometimes they measure it from tip to the top of the handle, but looking at the blade, we're still at 3.25 inches, so it's definitely over 3 inches. Just keep that in mind. Total cutting length is 3.25 inches. All right, let's look at the blade stock thickness. This to me looks like it's going to be almost 0.15, maybe 0.14, 0.15. Let's go ahead and measure that. Does not look like a small blade stock, so let's see what we got. I was wrong, 0.1, almost 0.16 inches, so it's 159 thousandths of an inch. So it is a thick blade. It's almost close to 2/10 of an inch. Well, that's not a surprise. I mean, it's an overbuilt big knife for sure, right? So there you go. Now, looking at this knife and looking at the costs of it, I was trying to see, he has some for sale and I was looking for it, you know, where you could find it. I don't see the price. I think this knife is like in the 400 plus range. Let me see if I can find something real quick. There we go. Oh, okay. You know, I was looking, yeah, whoo! I was looking at the Trisect and the custom version. So you can get a custom version of this, just so you know. And those are $1,500, $1,200. So if you want a full custom, you can absolutely do that, right? And but if you, I think they're Trisect. Oh no, that's the Rook. Sorry, my mistake. The Rook has a similar properties to the Trisect, but the Trisect is $400. Yeah, it's a $400 knife. So it's not going to be a super inexpensive knife. It's definitely going to be in the high end category. It's less than 600, but it's over 300. So this is a high-end knife, obviously. This is a beautiful piece. It's not going to be just your everyday. Is it EDC? Absolutely. If you like overbuilt big knives, you can absolutely EDC. Could you hard use this? Yeah, I think you really could. I mean, you know, this is absolutely a hard use knife, especially phosphor bronze. You can be in any sort of environment. It feels solid. Everything is in there really solidly. This beautiful frame lock is going to lock it in there really well. So yeah, it definitely feels like a solid knife. Is it a collection piece? I think it's more of a collection piece to me. This seems more like a collection piece, but it seems like very much a collection carry piece. So you can collect it and carry it. You know, if I had this, if I were, the aesthetic spoke to me, I would definitely carry it, but I would have a 5th pocket knife, right? For any of those situations where I might could potentially damage the knife. I would definitely do that. But absolutely an EDC, absolutely for a frame lock, it could do hard use frame lock. Don't go out there chopping wood and logs and stuff. You know, use a fixed blade or an axe. I don't recommend that. But if you're in a pinch and you're survival and you needed to do that, I mean, yeah, I think this could survive you. You might damage it, but you could absolutely get you through, right? So just keep that in mind. It's more, so to me, it's a collection EDC piece. Ergonomics and feel and design. It is big, and it is bulky, and it's square, and it's everything else, but guess what? It feels comfortable in the hand. There are no hot spots. It's not digging in. It's not hurting my hand. It's very comfortable all the way around, left-handed, right-handed. It feels good. The clip doesn't burn in my hand. I can choke up. I can get up here here for a nice push cut. I can go up here, I think, for a pull cut. I can do like a back push cut like that, I think would work really, really well. Now, it's not super chamfered, but they're micro chamfering all the way around, so any sharp edges are definitely not there. Everything's rounded on the corners around here, so that's really nice, especially in the back. This is even rounded, so it's not going to dig into you, especially if you hold it here. It's not going to dig into your hand. It's comfortable, and getting to the lock bar is pretty comfortable with the right hand. It's really easy. Now, because I have shorter fingers, I have large hands, but my fingers are shorter, it's a little harder for me to flick it over here, and it's a little harder for me to get to this part where I have to get up this high, I have to disengage it, and then pull this closed. So my fingers don't quite reach to the tip of there because they're a little shorter. But if you got big hands, you're gonna really like this. I think you're gonna really enjoy this left-handed as well, okay? So I will say that. It's right hand tip only, like I said, it's not reversible. Just keep that in mind, depending on, you know, what's important to you, if that's okay. If you're lefty and you don't mind carrying right-handed knives, I think you'll really enjoy this with big hands, for sure. Opening and closing is really nice on the right hand. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And for a big knife, it works really well. I will say that the closing is really great for phosphor bronze washers, and especially the weight of the blade. I think it's also phenomenal and surprising, right? Fidget factor. So you can also, by the way, I didn't even show you this. You can front flip this knife. It front flips pretty well, and I think it's intended to be a front flipper, and I think I can do it left-handed here. Yeah, so definitely left-handed, I can front flip. I have a hard time closing it left-handed with the typical way that I would close a knife over here. So, you know, it almost feels like it's two-handed for a lefty because my fingers are short, okay? I mean, they're not as long as most people who have extra large, double extra large hands. So, and you know, that's where I have to, if I do gloves that are medium, I can get my fingers to touch the tip, but I can't get my meaty fingers in them. But if I get a large glove, I can get them in there just perfectly comfortable and snug, but I can't get all the way to the tip. So sometimes they make what they call medium large gloves. They're made for shorter tips with, you know, wider fingers. And those fit me pretty well. So anyways, I'll just say that. So there you go. As far as fidget factor, opening and closing, it's really nice right-handed. It's a little challenging for me. So, you know, I'll give you my impression and then what I think for someone with larger hands, my gut feel. I don't have larger hands, so I'm just telling you what I think would be the case. I think this would be a really great fidget factor for, you know, for larger hands. So because, I didn't give you the score yet. We have the thumb hole that we can both thumb and reverse flick. You can, I think, let's see, can we do it? It's really hard. No, it's really hard to get the finger in there because, again, my fingers are a little smaller, but there's enough in here to get in, and if I could push that open. Now, this the detent on this is a little tough. I mean, it's definitely heavy duty for a front flipper. If this was my own knife, I might lighten that detent just a slight bit so I can have more of the front flip, because then I could possibly do something like this. But right now, with the way how strong it is, there's no way I could do that. I would just rip the skin right off my finger, but it works really well like this. So I think fidget factor wise, I'm going to give this a 6, okay? The reason why I give it a 6 personally is because my left-handed. It's a little hard for me to work with it, right? To open and close it. I will just tell you that's the challenging part. Though it does a front flipper, though it has thumb holes, and though I could theoretically do a middle finger flick on there, I just can't reach any of those things, right? So, some of those things I can do, some of those things I can't do. I can't close it with my left hand because it's so big the blade is. So for me, that takes away some of the fidget factor usability for me. So if I had big hands, this could very easily get a 7 or an 8 on the fidget factor. Very easily, I think. Okay, so I'll just give you that. That's what I think for larger hands would be. For me, with my size hands, it's definitely like going to be a 6. Now, fidgety goodness. For what I can do, okay, out of that 6, I would give this probably a good 90, right? I'd give it a good 90. Absolutely a good 90%. Now, if I was the larger hands and I gave it a 6 with the larger hands, probably 100%. If I was the larger hands and I gave it out of that 8, I would probably, it'd probably get up there to a good solid A+, like 90, 95, maybe even 100. I don't know. I don't have larger hands. I'm just guessing there. But I just wanted to give you an idea, if you have larger hands, what you think. But I'm just kind of interpolating it into my size hands to larger hands, because sometimes I have smaller hands. And then, you know, some people with smaller hands love this knife, and then when I grab it and they tell me their feedback on that smaller knife, and then I have it, and I can kind of guess how the size difference will interpolate into, you know, somebody else's hands. So that's just my thoughts on that. You know, you can agree, disagree, that's fine. I'm just giving you my thoughts. It's my review, my impressions. You absolutely can disagree 100%. You can absolutely agree 100%. That is absolutely up to you guys, right? So please, by all means, do what's important to you guys. But that's my thoughts on there. So it's, I mean, I'm going to give it a good, out of that 6 that I can fidget factor, I'm going to give it a good, I'm going to give it a 90. I think I said 90 before, but maybe 85, 90, right? Just because the left-handed part is too challenging. Overall thoughts, I like the knife. I really do. Is it something that I would recommend for people with my size hands? Probably not. But I think looking at the intent of the knife, looking at the overbuiltness of it and the largeness of it and the sheer the aesthetics, design is beautiful. I mean, it's just really, it's a monstrously gorgeous knife, okay? Looking at that, I'm going to recommend this as a high-end knife. I'm not going to, it's not going to be part of my recommended knives, but it's definitely a high-end recommended knife. I think if this is in your wheelhouse and you like to collect, absolutely a collection piece. If you have large hands and you like this aesthetic, absolutely a collection EDC piece for sure. For myself personally, it's not going to be one of my recommended knives that I would just go use all the time. So I have high-end recommended knives, and in my high-end recommended knives, those are the high-end custom mid-tech, you know, type of knives. And some of those could be things that are just collection pieces for some people, and some of them are EDC. And for me, a recommended knife is something that I would carry comfortably and use, all right? So just so you know, even though it does have a category cost of anything over $100 to less than $600, that to me is going to be, you know, my recommended typical category. But I will put some higher end knives in there because they're very great to carry. They're comfortable, they're great to EDC. I very much enjoy carrying my Herman. I very much enjoy carrying my Trevor Burger XL. I very much enjoy carrying my whippersnapper. My Quantum Sheer-Gorf, I do like to carry it. It is very large, but I really enjoy it for what it is. And it's not, I do carry it, and I do like it. So yeah, I'm going to put it in there as well, right? So those are knives that would probably all fall into that. This would not, because if it was my collection, it would be probably just a collection piece. But then again, you know, I don't have collection pieces. So I'm just trying to give you my thoughts on that. You can agree or disagree, that's fine. Just wanted to give you my overall thoughts on that. So it's nice that I have a nice soft board like that when I just dropped it on the blade, so we don't have any damage to the lone knife. I want to make sure Danny knows that. But anyways, really, and I'm not worried. This knife, I'm sure, could take a beating and it would be perfectly fine. But I don't want to test that, and I will not test that. So there you go. All right, overall thoughts. You have my thoughts, you have my impressions. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you agree or disagree, or if you think I'm off the wall or missed something, let me know. If you have any questions about the knife that I could possibly answer, let me know as well. Hey, and if you have any questions about the channel, myself, or any future ideas for Rob's Ramblings, please let me know in the comments. I do try to engage everybody. I do appreciate that part of the channel, of being able to talk to folks, so I do like that a lot. Hey, if you found this content fun, interesting, worthwhile, entertaining, or informative, would you please consider hitting the like button down below? And if you've already hit that like button, would you please consider hitting the subscribe button? Subscribing and liking the channel really helps me out, helps the channel out, be able to bring more content, do more things for you guys ultimately. Thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. And if you've done all that, maybe consider hitting the notification button so you can be notified of future content when it's dropped. I'd love for you to continue watching the videos, right? And if you haven't already, maybe check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Hey, thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.